This will go into effect, and it's my option. It's not Mexico's, but it will go into effect when Mexico tells me it's okay to release it.
President Trump has warned that if there's a problem and the approval is not forthcoming, tariffs against Mexican imports will be reimposed.
Fox's John Decker, the president hit the campaign trail on Tuesday with 2 stops in Iowa.
And it is wonderful to be back in Iowa, right here in the heartland of America. You know, it is the heartland of America, and I love it, and we won it by a lot. And we're going to win it again by a lot.
He spoke in Council Bluffs and attended that Republican Party fundraiser in Des Moines. Democrat frontrunner Joe Biden also in the state, telling a campaign stop in Ottumwa, the president's a threat.
I mean, it's bizarre, and it's damaging. And so I think he's genuinely a threat to our core values, and he's a threat to our standing in the world.
And reversing earlier statements, the former vice president said China poses challenges and possible threats to the United States. The House has voted to allow its committee chairs to go to court if necessary to force compliance with committee subpoenas. Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler saying,
"We will move as quickly as possible to go to court against Don McGahn, the president's former counsel, and any subsequent witnesses who disobey a committee subpoena." President Trump tweeting the Democrat House is trying to destroy the Trump presidency. Donald Trump Jr. will be back on Capitol Hill in the morning, testifying to the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is Fox News.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
A man has been arrested for shooting an L.A. County Sheriff's deputy Monday night. Rhett Nelson turned in by his own father after he'd called home and said he might have killed 2 people. Nelson also now a suspect in the shooting death of a man on an L.A. street corner, shot about an hour before Deputy Joe Solano was hit. Deputy Solano remains on life support. Attorneys general from 9 states and the District of Columbia suing to stop Sprint and T-Mobile from merging.
The attorneys general, all Democrats, argue consumers will have fewer choices and pay higher prices if the $26.5 billion deal goes through. They also question claims from the wireless companies that the merger will result in better networks in rural areas and faster service overall. T-Mobile and Sprint say they need to join forces to create a 5G network strong enough to compete with rival carriers AT&T and Verizon. The Justice Department's decision is pending. DOJ attorneys reportedly telling the companies they won't approve the proposal unless changes are made. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
Facebook launching an app they say will pay users to share information with them about which apps they're using, similar to 2 apps which Facebook had rolled out previously. They tracked what activities people did on their phones. Both of those were shut down after drawing privacy concerns. Google Maps working on a safety feature for users of ride-hailing services.
Mobile Software Development Community, XDA Developers, says Google Maps is testing off-route alerts to notify a rider's phone every time a ride-hailing service driver veers off course by more than 500 meters, a little over 1,600 feet. The feature being tested in India, it's unclear how close it is to a full release or whether it will roll out globally. The potential update could follow other safety features recently made to Google Maps, like SOS alerts, which provide real-time information during times of crisis and details about flooding or natural disasters to help avoid any danger.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There's so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll. Let's gallivant.
Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I didn't have my headset on that time there, so I don't know if I said it right or not. What do you think, Real Joe Cruz?
Spot on, sir.
Yeah, I couldn't hear myself through the headset, so I was okay, huh?
It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I have so little practice in reciting the Second Amendment. I only say it, every day?
Every day.
Yeah, that's because it's really important. I don't have a little Second Amendment vignette for today, so we'll go right straight to Zemi Ikotny. The location of my coveted blue pencil has somehow evaded my grasp. So I'm going to have to go, here this blue pencil can hide if you don't watch it very carefully. So Zemi Ikotny, I use this blue pencil. The other day I found the Daily News editorial when they were talking about a calculation, and it was about women's World Cup soccer, and it was grossly unfair, and they wanted to talk about the money involved, and they used this sentence: the simple arithmetic of women's soccer is that the only real money is in the World Cup. I think probably they meant arithmetic instead of arthritic, but they used arthritic, so I came down on them pretty hard for that, you know. This, of course, was not a Daily News editorial. This is something they got from Gannett from, let's see, from the USA Today editorial board. Well, I'm assuming that the members of the USA Today editorial board know that using arithmetic instead of arithmetic just doesn't add up. So I look for that kind of stuff, Confessions of a Former English Teacher. And then I also evaluate the content of each particular editorial. I see if they appear to know what it is that they're talking about, and whether the facts and propositions they state are correct, which sometimes means whether or not they agree with me on that particular subject. However, I've been awarded the Blue Star to editorials in which I was in disagreement because of the style and the persuasiveness of the editorial, even though they were operating on an incorrect premise. So I go through those two things, and then at the end, I weigh the two editorials, and if one is more meritorious than the other, I give the coveted blue star to the better of the two editorials, keeping in mind the Mark proviso. Mark called one time and said, and called me out for maybe being a little too easy, a little too willing to find a meritorious editorial where no merit really existed, kind of suggesting it's better not to give a blue star at all than to improvidently grant a blue star to an editorial that doesn't really merit it. So that's a Mark's corollary to the doctrine of the blue star. So I start out here today with the Daily News editorial. And here we go. Crime, a constant blight. Crime is a huge problem in our community. Despite new initiatives, new laws, and stricter penalties, crime is a continual blight, one that doesn't seem to be getting any better. This is highlighted by the large number of those who commit repeated crimes, including those who have been arrested and commit new offenses while on pretrial release. In 2018, the Superior Court recorded 158 charges of felony while on felony release. When a defendant is charged with a new, that is, when a defendant is charged with a new felony pretrial release. So person is arrested for a felony, brought before a magistrate. The magistrate allows him to be released pending trial on various conditions. And during the time that the felon is on pretrial release, he commits another felony. And, of course, that doesn't sit very well with the community and nor with the Daily News, apparently. According to Sean Gumatautsau, spokesman for the judiciary, the decision to release or detain a defendant is up to the magistrate judge or the assigned judge who considers all factors. Well, we got somebody who's on the line really early here, and it's Marcus. Okay, well, I'll interrupt what I'm talking about here and entertain Mr. Marcus, who seems to be prompted by a sense of urgency here.
Actually, I wanted to just chime in a little bit about yesterday I heard you, or the other day I heard you talking with one of your callers about, you know, the rainbow flags and everything that we're doing nowadays.
And Marcus, can you turn off your radio?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that I don't like to hear myself, but...
You sound okay on the phone.
All right, go ahead.
You sound good. Anyways, so my situation was getting the military to recognize our marriage certificate. I'm a Messianic Jew that had a rabbi from Jerusalem do the marriage ceremony here on island. And they're supposed to accept anything, but they want you to register some kind of with Guam's Vital Statistics, Department of Health and Human Services. But that's only good for Guam. And, you know, I live in Guam part of the year, and then I live in the States and some other places. And so I just needed them to just give me my wife's standard ID card, the military. And all of them kept coming up with the same excuse that, well, we don't have a registered number, we don't have a certified, but, you know, they'll accept a domestic partnership or domestic union between other people just by, I don't know what how they just accept it. And, but for a religious certificate and a Judaic, you know, it's a big document that goes framed in your house. So all I'm supposed to provide is a translation of it, and the witness and the rabbi signed it. But, you know, I guess that wasn't good enough for him. And do you know anything like that? Because I know you have a strong legal background.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've even performed some marriages, Marcus, back in the time when I was a judge. Although, you know, I'm gonna tell you probably a little bit more than what you asked for. I'm not in favor of civil marriages. The government should have stayed away from marriage. Because marriage is actually a religious undertaking.
Yes.
But the state poked its nose into let the camel of the state poked its nose into the tent before, you know it, the whole camel was in there. So now in order to get married on Guam, you have to present yourself at the Department of Public Health and Social Services, the Office of the Territorial Registrar, and get a marriage license. And once you have a marriage license, then you go before someone who is able to perform marriages, and that's a lot of people. And that person will fill out portions of that marriage license and sign it. And then you take it back to the Department of Public Health and Social Services, and they will give you a file-stamped piece of paper that shows that you have been legally married on the island of Guam.
Right.
And we a couple of years ago, we decided that, you know, up until a couple of years ago, until the Ogerfeld decision, in order to get married, it required a man and a woman. Now we allow Henry to marry Herman and Mary to marry Marion. We've put that aside.
Adam and Steve.
Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, right. Again, but according to AFI regulations that both offices, both the Navy, the Guam Guard and the Air Force use for their ID sections, stipulate in certain sections, because I used to do this, I was a clerk, I was a hospital administrator, and there was a few other things. And, you know, we had an orderly room, so we would do stuff like this, and they're supposed to just accept the certificate that was given by the rabbi, and then you do a deer thing and all that stuff. And Israel is also, you know, even though it's done in Guam, it's also registered in Israel, where, you know, they're an independent country, so it's not only a religious thing, it's an international thing. And again, I don't see why the feds, there's regulations says they're supposed to accept it, but they just aren't doing it yet. So I put in a congressional inquiry with Senator Nicholas's office, hoping to hear something back on that someday. But just one other note I wanted to share. It's a public service announcement on the waters in Namu Bay and the possibility of getting MRSA, which is a superbug of cellulitis. And unfortunately, I contracted that by swimming out there 2 weeks ago, and it got really out of hand in the last week, and I had to bounce back and forth between GRMC and Navy Hospital to finally get treated with an IV, antibiotics, and so on. It still has some lingering issues because it might be coming back again. And John Hopkins is actually the leader on that kind of stuff. But how I was able to diagnose it myself is I just posted a picture, and some of my Jewish friends and doctors from Israel were the ones immediately identified it and said, hey, that's a community health issue, an environmental health issue, and your people are supposed to be studying that stuff. And, you know, Namu Bay and Namu River used to be on the list every day, and they used to have signs that indicated it's not safe to swim, but they don't do that anymore. They haven't gotten the raise in a while or something.
Okay, well, best of luck with your MRSA and with your document problem, Marcus.
I didn't mean to hear all of that, but yeah, those are two important things that are on my list right now. And I know you were talking about I've already forgot what you were talking about.
It happens to me sometimes, too. Sometimes I have to have the real Joe Cruz remind me what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoy your show. You got a fantastic group of people and a forum, and thanks very much.
Thank you, Marcus. Thanks for calling. Okay, so there we go. Everything you wanted to know about getting married on Guam and didn't know who to ask. And everything you ever wanted to know about swimming in Namo Bay. And now you probably won't want to. But going back to the Daily News editorial about crime being a constant blight, according to Sean Gumatauta, spokesman for the judiciary, the decision to release or detain a defendant is up to a magistrate judge or the assigned judge who considers all factors. Now, you regular listeners of out there in our international radio listening audience know that from more than once when people were complaining about, oh, the judges, why are they letting those people out? Yeah, that's right, Real Joe Cruz. Real Joe Cruz is in the control room there shaking his head and grimacing. Too bad we can't get him on Facebook Live. Maybe we could come up with an emoticon that shows the Real Joe Cruz freaking out. But anyhow, I said more than once, don't blame the judges. The judges are operating in accordance with 8 GCA Chapter 40. And 8 GCA Chapter 40, the preference is to release people on their own recognizance unless the judge can find a good reason not to. So I said, if you don't like that, don't holler at the judges, change the law. Okay, so here we go. Senator James Moylan has introduced a bill that would limit pretrial release for certain criminal charges. Bill 160 wouldn't allow those charged with criminal sexual conduct, armed robbery, kidnapping, and intent to distribute controlled substances to be released. Those individuals would be required to post bail. The measure would also apply to those who are charged with a new crime while serving on pretrial release for a previous crime. Quote, we have heard the cries of the community, and just as many as you have read the numerous media stories, and it's disturbing to see individuals committing crimes while on pretrial releases, and concerning when a person charged with serious crimes such as rape or armed robbery gets released on personal recognizance. And I'm glad I listened to Tall Tales because Bob has told me how I can have an impact on this. Moylan said, well, actually, Real Joe Cruz, the last part there is not part of the story. It's once again just me ad-libbing. Yeah. But Moylan finally scores, you know, after nonsense like the allowing the mayor's council to draft rules about gambling at the carnival, introducing bills to roll back taxes that don't become effective until the 1st of October, and a plethora of other bills, most of which are pretty easily forgotten. I finally hearing that bell ring. You know, he's standing there with that mallet smacking down on the lever over and over again. You see the puck go about halfway up or 3/4. This time it went all the way up. You got a bell in there, Real Joe Cruz? Let's just try that. I'm going to pretend I'm Jim Moylan. You ready?
I think that's it, sir. That's the bell that I have. I've got a gavel.
Starting tomorrow, let's have a bell, okay?
Okay, I've got to look for one.
Yeah, so that when somebody, you know, so often we will award a close but no cigar. But if we're going to do that, we ought to also give someone credit for ringing the bell. And Moylan rang the bell with this bill here. Changing the law concerning a judge's duties with respect to pretrial release. And then he also went a step farther. The bill would also require those charged with certain crimes that are released after posting bail to wear an electronic monitoring device for which they would have to pay. Well, good idea, but you know the Eighth Amendment to the Constitution says. Let me just grab it here and read it. Yes. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, are you ready now? Okay. Moylan has introduced a bill that would limit pretrial release for certain criminal charges. Bill 160 wouldn't allow those charged with criminal sexual conduct, armed robbery, kidnapping, and intent to distribute controlled substances release on recognizance. Those individuals would be required to post bail. Well, Jim Moylan, you smack the lever and you rang the bell. All right. Just once would be enough, real Joe Cruz. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Moylan rang the bell. And then he wants people who are released on the category of crimes that I just mentioned to wear an ankle bracelet, and that they are to pay for the ankle bracelet. Now, this is what the Eighth Amendment says. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. So how much bail is excessive bail? Now, remember, constitutionally, there are only two considerations that the judge is supposed to take into mind. One, what will it take to make sure the defendant appears for trial? And two, what is necessary to protect the public? Well, you could make a good argument that the, what does he refer to it as here? Electronic monitoring device might be necessary to safeguard the public, but is making the defendant pay for it, is that an excessive bail? You can bet that if the law passes and it's put in place, it will be challenged, and we will find out an answer to that particular question. But along with my suggestion that the law dealing with pretrial release be examined, I also suggested that one of our senators, when they're not here, we've got, you know, usually they list senators according to where they live, you know, like Lou Leon Guerrero, Agania Heights, or wherever she lived. But we've got 4 senators now who are apparently representing Taiwan. So when they come back, maybe they could look at going through our criminal law and the sentencing provisions of criminal law, because perhaps that needs to be looked at the same way Moylan looked at the pretrial release conditions. What do you think, Gillis?
Well, what if we, instead of saying the bracelet is a requirement of being released, but if you don't want to wear the bracelet, then you can just stay in. You know, in other words, if you don't, well, you have a choice. You can either stay in or rent the bracelet, an ankle bracelet.
Yeah, well, I hear what you're saying, but that choice was named after a gentleman named Hobson, wasn't it? A classic example of a Hobson's choice.
I don't know.
Yeah, so if having the bracelet is a condition precedent to being released on bail, then it's part of your bail regardless of what phraseology you use to describe the mechanism that you're going to use to collect the money from the defendant.
Or how about this? You can just sit there and say, if the bail is $10,000, then you just use the bail to rent the bracelet. And then when you come back, because then you get I see. See, I'm not a lawyer, and that's why you're the judge.
Well, I'm just the talk show host right now, Kellis, and I'm always grateful when you call in because you always have something probative to say.
Okay. Well, I'd rather them wear a bracelet, or actually, I'd rather the drug dealers not be released. Period.
Yeah, I agree. If there were a way to do that constitutionally, I'd be all for it. But, you know, the large bail is usually a significant factor in people getting out. Unfortunately, we decided when we adopted the model penal code that we wouldn't have bail, you know, we wouldn't have bail bondsmen in our system, that in effect the court is the bail bondsman. So if the bail is $10,000 in cash, that means that you got to pay up 10 grand at the clerk's window in order to get released. And if you don't come back, you're out 10 grand. So quite often what that means is that the criminal himself, or the alleged criminal, doesn't have the 10 grand. It's his mother and his father and his common law and his cousin and everybody else that posts that 10 grand, giving him something of an incentive to come back. But that doesn't get into the protecting the community part of it.
True. And
Well,
I guess we don't have any bondsmen here to go looking for them.
yeah.
Percentage.
And let me just take that back a second. You know, in Wisconsin, there's a crime called bail jumping, and the definition is quite broad. So if the condition of your bail is that you don't drink alcohol and you're busted for DWI, that is a crime called bail jumping, and it's just one more charge that you're faced with. So, Jim Moylan, that's something you could consider in your Bail Reform Act there.
I think that these people that are released, I would just kind of assume that these people that are released on their own recognizance, that, you know, not doing any crimes as should be part of their release.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So these people that are doing it, they should not be given a second chance. I mean, they should get no bail at all, period.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's something that a judge certainly could take into consideration.
Well, I got to go. I got to take another call. I'll talk
Thanks
to
a
you.
lot, Kellis. Okay, so I'm listening to Dave Brubeck's Take 5 in the background telling me I've got a break here.
Experience the Take Care difference. Take Care members can count on accessing a high-quality, credentialed network of on-island providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and Urgent Care, access to an extensive off-island network of providers, and the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs. You can count on Take Care to deliver comprehensive, accredited insurance coverage and quality health care when and where you need it. Take Care. Our island, your health plan. Learn more at takecareasia.com.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, piggy bank.
Terms and conditions apply. GTA, we start with you.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, it's 888-8255, and don't forget, we're streaming live here on Facebook, and just a friendly suggestion, you might want to go up and click on that share arrow while you're in Facebook. Do your friends a big favor and cut them in on the greatest afternoon talk show on FM radio here in the Western Pacific. They'll be eternally grateful to you. Okay, let's see what the Post has got to say today. The title is GMH Woes Worsening, but Long-Term Solutions Lagging. Two developments related to the only two hospitals for civilians on Guam became public on Monday. First, the privately owned Guam Regional Medical City confirmed 40 of its employees were laid off as a part of restructuring to be more efficient and save money. GRMC had hired a restructuring office in April following a management change. The private hospital's Philippine owners had overspent on developing the hospital, which cost $411 million, nearly double the original budget of $220 million. Obviously, as a private enterprise, GRMC can act quickly to cut costs and try to make up for what it overspent. And if they have laid off 40 people and someone asks, they can actually answer the question and instead of going into that ridiculous routine of saying, oh, that's a personnel matter. I can't even acknowledge your question. It's a personnel matter. Later on Monday, an audit report on government-run Guam Memorial Hospital became public. While many have tuned out and have gotten tired of hearing GMH's financial woes following year after year of audit findings that essentially say GMH runs short of cash in large part because it can't refuse patients even when they can't pay. This latest audit report should raise heightened concern. It should also hopefully prompt elected officials to move with a sense of urgency, just like Marcus moved with a sense of urgency at the beginning of the program. Even though I was just halfway through the Daily News, he got on the phone and called. He had a sense of urgency there, and we looked for the same thing at GMH. The audit report indicates GMH might be on an even faster slide. If our elected officials don't do anything drastic, the hospital's financial condition could become too far deteriorated to resuscitate in the not-so-distant future. One of the more concerning numbers in the report is the loss of customers at GMH since the private hospital opened. The number of patients who sought care at GMH decreased by 14,000, or 29% during the 2018 fiscal audit. This budget year, 3 budget years prior, GMH saw 46,000 patients. GMH's total patient count dropped to 32,000 in fiscal 2018. So they're seeing they've lost 29% of their patients last year, apparently because those folks are going to GRMC. Well, I wonder if it's possible that the fewer patients GMH has, the less money it loses. It's possible. I suppose we'll find out. As GMH's financial condition deteriorates, it could be aggravated by the exit of more paying patients and patients covered by health insurance who can get care at the newer, more specialty-driven GRMC. GMH collects only 49 cents for every dollar billed for all patients, the 2018 audit found. Patients who were underinsured or lacked health insurance coverage racked up 18%, or $28 million of the hospital's total billings in fiscal 2018. But GMH collected only $7.3 million, the audit added. Guam taxpayers have been subsidizing GMH year after year. GovGuam also has borrowed money to help GMH keep afloat. But taxpayers can't be writing bigger bailout checks year after year for GMH. Elected officials, in consultation with the public and experts in the private sector, need a comprehensive approach to solving GMH's woes. These should be done with more urgency than the other issues that have taken priority for this current set of senators and administration officials. The discussions GMH should have been priority over carnival gambling or bingo or cannabis or the Kelly Marsh 11-member commission that I listed on the card as Marsh versus Magellan. You know, I mean, let's just relax and let Magellan take full credit for the first circumnavigation of the Earth. Is that a priority? I don't think so. Yeah, so here we are, all of this stuff when our hospital is going from bad to worser on an accelerated basis. And these elected officials need to tackle GMH's problem head on rather than take a Band-Aid approach. Well, that's pretty good. Band-Aid at GMH. Temporary fixes won't work to save GMH, and we hope the actions elected officials take will be meaningful enough to save GMH rather than have the effect of driving our first civilian hospital into the ground. Okay, Francis Santos, I hope you're listening, because you'll see that I'm even-handed here in my approach. I'm assuming that I'm one of the three guys that Francis Santos was talking about at the last CCU meeting when he said 3 people were talking about selling the utilities on the radio. So let's find out how much those utilities are worth. That'll show them. Yeah. So I think it was Ray and me, and I don't know who the third person was. Yesterday I hypothesized that it was perhaps the man who never was, like the British counterintelligence trick used in World War II. But here goes, Francis. We should sell GMH. Sell it. Yeah. Sell it. And sell it to one of these hospital corporations that run a hospital. There's several of them in the States that run large hospitals and do a pretty good job of it. So we would sell it, and we would keep some control over the rate structure. Perhaps it could be regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. We would want to make sure that whoever bought it could get a decent return on investment. But come on, anything is better than what we've got that has never worked, and as the Daily News points out, it gets worse every year. So that's my proposal. Sell it. And I know that this guy over here in the corner in the lazy boy, the guy I call the smart money, saying, oh, you can't sell it. Organic says you can't sell it. Organic Act doesn't say that. And I have read a passage from Baldwin versus Bordallo that says that the government of Guam can decide if it even wants to have a hospital. So it could be done. It could be legal to sell Guam Memorial Hospital. And it could very possibly be that we could sell it at a profit. I don't know. I don't know about medical economics, but there are people that do. And rather than pouring more money into GMH that never seems to make a difference, maybe we could hire a company to come out here and help us with that, to see how we could go about selling the hospital and how it would benefit us or how it wouldn't benefit us. But to continue to do the same old thing and come up with the same results doesn't make a lot of sense. So I had, now if the Post had made that suggestion, the Post would have gotten the blue star. But what the Post did was they outlined the problem, and they said, you know, you got to do something about it. You got to do something about it. But they stopped a little short about saying what they had to do. So, on the other hand, the Daily News winds up by saying a lot of crime bills have been introduced recently. This measure makes sense, and it addresses a serious growing problem. And senators need to work harder on these kinds of sensible solutions to protect our island community. Now, the only thing that the Daily News didn't mention was the tutelage provided by Tall Tales here. But given the substance of the editorial, that it's right on point, it's something we can sink our teeth into, it's something I agree with, something that I'm going to take the credit for inspiring, until somebody comes along and says, no, that isn't where Moylan got the idea. Jim Moylan got that idea. He had a dream. And in the dream, this soothsayer came along and whispered in his ear, amend Chapter 40 of AGCA. So, today, for the first time in a long time, the Daily News gets the coveted blue star. Yeah. That takes them up to 42 blue stars. All right. And, yeah, I got a call on line one, right? Right, Real Joe Cruz? It's probably Jim Moylan calling up to say, hey, thanks, Bob. That was a great idea.
That'd be nice, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a nice gesture on his part. It's John. Any particular John?
I'm not sure, sir.
Just John, huh? Hello, John.
John from Agate.
John from Agate. Okay. Hi, John.
Anyways, I like Jim Moylan's proposals.
Me too.
I also want to bring up the crime in Agate. Well, we got a vacant house, and we're going to renovate it. But in the meantime, these drug addicts decide to move in. And we didn't find out until they were there for like 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
So what had happened was we boarded it up. And then the guy that was really staying there, he got arrested. So when he came back, he couldn't get back into the house. So I go down there and see him, and he says his stuff is in the house. I says, why are your stuff in the house? He wouldn't tell me, but he knows his stuff is in the house.
Uh-huh.
I said, what? Let me find out, because the contractor boarded up everything and can't get in. And the doorknob was broken. I think he tried to get back in and break it. So sure enough, we finally got the contractor to open it up, and his stuff is in the house. And he had left already, because I had told him to leave. But I think they shouldn't be released unless they have an address to go to and someone to vouch that they're being released to that place. Because what this guy did, he went straight to our house, and he's staying there.
Was he on pretrial release?
I don't know. He just said he was in jail, and he's out, and his stuff is in the house. And
yeah,
we finally took his stuff out, and we made a complaint to Agate Precinct.
Well, usually as a condition of release, the arrestee has to specify where he's going to be, his address, and no address, no release.
He stands there and says, this is his house.
Yeah, well.
Unbelievable.
There's a, when you went to college, did you live in the dorm?
No, I live with Mom and Dad. I was too scared.
Oh, okay.
Well, hungry.
There was a.
That's one of the reasons why I never left, because my Mom and Dad always had food.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason not to leave.
Money to buy food.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy who had a similar problem in Sinahanya. He was a dormer, and he went to his village mayor, and I clued in the village mayor, if he was listening to Tall Tales, that there's a law called public nuisance. And in your situation, you got a trespassing there. If you own that house, people can't just come and move in. So if you see somebody moving in, call the cops.
But we did. So we did, and apparently we didn't have the right paperwork. It was the wrong paperwork. So the cop says, nope, can't do anything till you get the right paperwork.
Paperwork?
So, yeah, that you own the house. Because even the guy says he owns the house. So I said, oh my gosh. So my friend gets all the paperwork, but it was the wrong one. So I think they're straightening it out today. But it's just really heartbreaking, and then we had to put up with this guy who's staying in the house, because it was boarded up already, but he's there and he's saying it's his, and it's like he's scary, and it's just unbelievable.
Well, I'd say that's a failure on the part of the police officers if they think that it's not like a car, you don't have to have your registration in the bathroom of your house,
That's exactly, they wouldn't do anything. They even came over, but the guy said he's going. I said, where are you going? Didn't you want us to call the police so we can settle this? He says, no, I'm going to go. You call me. Arby's just down the street. And another problem is that game room. That game room just down the street from in Agat, in front of the gas station.
I would suggest you do two things: get your village mayor involved and work with Southern Precinct on that, because you shouldn't have to put up with that, John.
I took his picture, and his last name is the same as the vice mayor's name. So,
what's his last name? Or wait a minute, you can't tell me. It's a personnel matter, right?
No, it's it's so weird because he wrote notes because he didn't know when we were coming back to check the house.
What's his name?
Saying Ken Ferris, family name Min.
Ken Paris?
Farron.
Farron.
The vice mayor's last name. Tim's vice mayor's last name.
All right. Well, John, I got a break coming up, but best of luck, okay? And keep us informed, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Oh. I think probably a lot more kids are going to be thinking about being dormers given the situation with people moving into houses without permission, right? Yeah. Okay, short break here, and then I'm going to come back to the card.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Your home is one of the most important investments you'll make in your life. At Nanbo Insurance, you can rest easy knowing that you're covered with reliable and affordable homeowners insurance. Nanbo makes it easy to protect what matters the most so you can enjoy the moments that matter the most. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
So here we are back again, and this is what I got on the card for this afternoon. I've got the real Joe Cruz versus Merriam-Webster. I've got Alabama versus Guam. Is our Tom line open? Yeah, good. I've got 3 senators versus the Ethics Commission. I've got Leon Guerrero versus Mike San Nicolas. I've got breaking news. The Supreme Court has ruled in a case in one of the DFS versus airport cases. And I've got Lou Leon Guerrero versus babies. I'm going to save that one till last. But the poet laureate of Tall Tales has weighed in again. So let me take a minute here to get into that a little bit. Our Bob is a very tall gnome. Now, being a tall gnome is quite an accomplishment. Yeah, it's kind of like saying that Wilt Chamberlain was the world's tallest midget. Except I don't think you're supposed to use the word midget anymore. I don't know what the right word is, but our Bob is a very tall gnome. We're so happy that he is at home, talking on his great show, keeping us in the know, and his name is a short palindrome. A palindrome is a word that's spelled the same backwards and forwards. Real Joe Cruz is not a palindrome. Bob is. And I went to college with a guy, a really lucky guy, whose name was Bob Otto. A double palindrome, right? Okay, and then I guess the Real Joe was listening yesterday when I had an item on the card, Marsh versus Magellan, and this is what he said. Senator Marsh aims to fight, bringing local issues to light. She'll risk an invective for tomorrow perspective. Too bad she's a true blatherskite. Blatherskite, a person who talks at great length without making much sense. Yeah, that's our poet laureate. And then as a preface to the last item on the card for today, which is Lou Leon Guerrero versus babies, Governor Lou is on a mission, seeking a certain physician to sate women's caprices, carve babies to pieces. We're back on the road to perdition. That's the poet laureate of Tall Tales. Okay, so the only reason that I left the Real Joe Cruz versus Webster on the card is that I thought I might have the opportunity to work the word dormer into the conversation somehow. But I already did that with the caller from what that we'll call Agate John. So I guess I could take it off the calendar for today, right? Okay, and you told me that our Tom lines are open, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Alabama approves castration law for some sexes. So this is Alabama versus sex criminals. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey on Monday signed into law a measure requiring anyone convicted of sex crimes with children younger than 13 to be chemically castrated as a condition of parole. Under the new law, offenders required to undergo the reversible procedure must begin the treatment at least a month before their release dates and continue treatment until a judge finds that it's no longer necessary. Ivey, a Republican, of course, made no public statement about the measure. She had given little indication whether she supported the measure until Monday, the last day she could sign the bill. The bill was introduced by Steve Hurst, a Republican representing Calhoun County, who said that if he had his way, offenders would be permanently castrated through surgery. Wow. If they're going to mark these children for life, they need to be marked for life, Hearst told the NBC affiliate in Montgomery. So there's more to the story, and the reason that I caught the story is this, that Alabama is at least the 7th state allowing or requiring physical or chemical castration of some sex offenders, joining California, Florida, Louisiana, Montana, Texas, and Wisconsin. In most of these states, the treatment is a reversible chemical procedure, etc. And then it goes on to say the U.S. territory of Guam in the Western Pacific also allows voluntary chemical castration, although the procedure has never been carried out there. A bill in the legislature seeks to make the procedure mandatory for offenders seeking parole. NBC affiliate KUAM reported. So Guam made the national news there. Yeah, and I thought, is this Stack VIP working okay? Alerting me to phone calls? I don't have a phone call coming in? Oh, okay. But the Tom line is open, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Okay, well, let's take a break for that big halftime show that we all enjoy so much. And I will come back to 3 senators versus the Ethics Commission.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Congress votes its chairs some legal muscle. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The House is voting to empower committee leaders to go to court if need be to enforce compliance with committee subpoenas.
The House Judiciary Committee is now empowered to take former White House counsel Don McGahn and Attorney General William Barr to court to enforce subpoenas related to the special counsel's Russia investigation.
We're not going to go to court against the Attorney General so long as they, in good faith, do what they've said they were going to do. That's all we wanted.
Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler explaining what happens next after a straight party line vote in the House made it easier for committees to file lawsuits against witnesses who defy subpoenas. A list that includes McGahn.
Fox's Jared Halperin, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, says he'll go to court to try and force former White House counsel Don McGahn to testify before the committee over the president's claim of executive privilege against that. Former Vice President Joe Biden telling a campaign event in Davenport, Iowa Tuesday, the president's trying to dismantle separation of powers.
I have absolute power. No, you don't, Donald Trump. Or only I can fix it. Fix yourself first, Donald Trump.
Also in Iowa yesterday, President Trump told an audience in Council Bluffs that Biden seems to have a fascination with him.
He was someplace in Iowa today, and he said my name so many times that people couldn't stand it anymore. No, don't keep saying it. Sleepy guy.
Singer Stevie Lawrence has revealed he's been diagnosed with early stages of Alzheimer's disease. The singer saying he felt the need to speak out in light of recent rumors, saying he doesn't want pity or sympathy. He's lived his life filled with love and support and some amazing moments. Steve Lawrence is 83. Wall Street down slightly on Tuesday. Asian stocks have closed Wednesday lower. Dow futures down more than 80 points. This is Fox News.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
When it comes to power and performance, nothing compares to Dodge. And right now at Cars Plus and Mighty, you can save thousands on many Dodge vehicles in stock during our Dodge Performance Days. Like a new 2019 Grand Caravan SE, save $4,250, or save $6,150 on a new Durango SXT. Looking for more power? Take home a new Charger SXT Plus today for only $37,689, or save over $7,000 on a new Challenger GT. Get more power and performance at Cars Plus and Mighty during Dodge Performance Days. Cars Plus. Driven by you.
Senate Republicans are appealing to their Democrat colleagues to provide more money for humanitarian aid at the U.S. southern border.
Trump administration officials dealing with the humanitarian crisis at the southern border warned they are running out of money. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the relevant committee will consider a $4.5 billion supplemental funding package next week.
The numbers cannot be denied. Any objective look at this situation would have to conclude that this is a genuine humanitarian crisis. It cannot be solved without a combination of cooperation from Mexico and cooperation from congressional Democrats.
Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer says he agrees with most of the funding request, but clearly still wants to negotiate.
There are some things that are not acceptable, but some things that we don't love, but we could accept.
On Capitol Hill, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
A comedian on Capitol Hill blasting lawmakers for skipping a hearing on replenishing the 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund. Former Daily Show host Jon Stewart calling the empty seats at the hearing a disgrace.
The reason why I work so hard on this is I feel like I can never repay the debt that these men and women gave to not just New York City, but to the country. They brought a stability by their moral courage and their actions. They showed us what was so worthy of our country, why it was so important for us to fight back. And I feel like I can never repay that.
Stewart has been a longtime advocate for 9/11 responders. Lawmakers from both parties say they support the bill that would replenish that fund. Federal safety investigators say they should have a preliminary report out in about 2 weeks from now on Monday's fatal helicopter crash in Midtown Manhattan. There is now a report the pilot, Timothy McCormick, who died in that crash, was not licensed to fly at low visibility. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data to Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data to Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Another great halftime show that the real Joe Cruz and I look forward to every day. Right, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back to the card. We've covered the real Joe Cruz versus Merriam-Webster and Alabama versus Guam. Alabama appears to be a little bit ahead of us in the castration business, but we could catch up. And then next on the calendar is 3 senators versus the Ethics Commission. And this is a story from KOAM last night. 4 of your senators are spending the week in Taiwan. Yeah. Speaker Tina Munya Barnes and Senators Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis, Clint Rizal and Tello Taitigui left Sunday for Taiwan to build on the sister city relationship Guam has had with Taipei since 1973. You know, real Joe Cruz, it's almost as articulate as I am. And given my supreme command of the English language, I'm just at a loss for words to tell you how happy I am that we've got 4 senators building our sister city relationship with Taipei. I'm just overjoyed.
They escape you? The words, they escape you?
Yeah, words just escape. I can't possibly put the depth of my feeling.
I thought you'd be tickled.
Yeah, end of words. But that's what they're doing. So they're going to be there for a week. So, you know, if it's worth doing, it's worth spending a whole week doing, right? Now, while Legislative Executive Director Carlo Branch tells KOAM News no legislative funds were spent on the trip, KOAM News confirmed the Taiwanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs paid for the travel and accommodations for most of the senators. So our government didn't pay for it, their government paid for it. This should make me even happier, right? Wow, we're doing this tremendously important work, building on this sister city relationship, and it's not even costing our government any money. I can't go into my usual rant about wasting taxpayers' money on junkets. This time we're wasting some other taxpayers' money on junkets. Senator Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, close parenthesis, office says she used her personal funds. Speaker Barnes said the lawmakers will, quote, explore recycling, sustainability, indigenous rights, and medical issues while on the trip. Oh, wow. I wonder if a week is long enough with, with a to-do list like that, right? Yeah. They are slated to return on Friday. Real Joe Cruz, let's see if we can find out when their plane arrives so that we could arrange a suitable welcome home for them at the airport.
Maybe a group of dancers and singers.
Yeah, doing our cultural dances. You know, those ones that have a deep tradition that we've been doing.
How about some inflatable balloons, sir? Oh,
well,
I can't do that.
First of all, the traditional dances that go way back in our history, all the way back to 1987. And then we'll get somebody to release some lighter-than-air balloons just to show them how glad they are to be back.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, now we come to the next part of the story. Guam ethics laws say no elected official shall receive any gift, including travel, worth over $200. Now, it's been a while since I've been to Taiwan, but I got a feeling that the airfare from here to Taipei and back is more than $200. Any gift over this amount must be disclosed to the Guam Ethics Commission by June 30. But the Guam Ethics Commission has not been impaneled yet. In a statement, Barnes tells KUAM News, our islands share many similarities. Yeah, Guam and Taiwan are really, really similar. Taiwan is about 1,000 times bigger than Guam. It's very close to the coast of China. It's populated by Chinese people. It's been in a long, drawn-out fight since 1949 with the People's Republic of China, which looks upon Taiwan as a renegade province. So there's a lot in common there, Tina. Our islands share many similarities. How we can learn from their successes and emulate this in Guam is crucial for our, it's not just important, it is crucial for our island. The trip is part of a tradition. Yeah, well, that makes it okay. And senators in past legislatures have traveled on the Taiwanese government's dime, the speaker said. So here's the rule. If something is unethical, but we've done it for a long time and other people have done it, it's okay then, right? Yeah, then it's all right. You know, this is a subset of the, well, yeah, but everybody else is doing it, of that same rule as far as ethics or misconduct or misbehavior is concerned. Well, even if it's wrong, we've been doing it for a long time, so that makes it okay. Or even if it's wrong, a lot of other people have done it too, so that makes it okay. I happen to have, as luck would have it, a part of the statute that's involved here. This is Chapter 15, 4 GCA Chapter 15, and it's Standards of Conduct for public employees, elected officials, you name it. And Article 2, specified standards. Here are some of the things that are where there are specified standards. Gifts, reporting gifts, confidential information, fair treatment, conflicts of interest, requirements of disclosure, restrictions on post-employment, and violations. So the number one item here in Article 2 is gifts. No employee shall solicit, accept, receive, directly or indirectly, any gift valued singly or in aggregate from a single source in excess of $200, whether in the form of money, prize, service, loan, travel, entertainment, hospitality, thing or promise, or in any other form, when a reasonable person would infer that the gift is intended to influence the employee in the performance of that individual's official's duty, or is intended as a reward for any official action on that individual's part. 15202. Every employee shall file a gifts disclosure statement with the Guam Ethics Commission on June 30 of each year if the following conditions are met. The employee or spouse or dependent received directly or indirectly from any source, gifts, etc., from a single source in excess of $200, whether the gift is in the form of money, service, goods, or any other form. So here's I should have warned our international listening audience to get out their Law and Order notebooks, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. So here's the question now. So Article 2 deals with standards, and I think it's Article 4 that deals with the commission, the so-called Ethics Commission. And it says that the governor is to appoint, the legislature is to confirm members of the commission. So we know that the governor has appointed and the legislature has confirmed the Ethics Commission. Does that mean that the Ethics Commission, how did the KOM story say it? Ethics Commission has not been impaneled yet. Well, this would be a good reason to impanel it because the members have been confirmed and we obviously have a case here. So if a person, and anybody can make a complaint, there are no standing requirements, makes a complaint to the Ethics Commission, what result? Does the fact that the Ethics Commission hasn't organized itself yet mean that it can't hear that complaint? That wouldn't be my analysis. My analysis would be that whatever the statute of limitations is on ethics complaints, and I didn't look that up, if this violation occurred after that, then regardless of when the Ethics Commission is impaneled, it can hear this matter, and it should hear this matter. Now, there's a matter of interpretation here. To determine whether a reasonable person would infer that the gift is intended to influence the employee in the performance of an individual's duty or is intended as a reward for any official action taken on that individual's part. I would hope that the Ethics Commission doesn't borrow a page from the book of the Elections Commission when faced with an adversarial type proceeding, a complaint of misconduct, doesn't look quickly for some reason, some insufficient reason to say, well, we don't have to decide that. Now, if the Ethics Commission meets and considers this matter and makes a determination that the requisite intent wasn't there, fine. If it makes a determination that the requisite intent was there, fine. If it says, well, we don't think that, blah, 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 if they turn out to be a bunch of blatherskites, which they should watch out for since Kelly Marsh, well, Kelly Marsh said she paid for it with her own money, so she's out of it. So if we're going to have an Ethics Commission, then it must address this particular matter. And if the 3 senators don't make reports as required by 15202, then they should be hunted down. And whatever punishment there is for failure to report should be levied upon them, even if they think, well, I didn't do anything wrong. So if we're going to have an Ethics Commission, it must hear, and it must be the sole determiner of whether or not there really is an ethics violation. Okay, so, of course, looking at it from another standpoint, what could be wrong with this? A week in Taiwan? Probably the government put them up in a really nice hotel in Taiwan, hotel room, and it was a great photo opportunity because the KUM Stories got a really nice picture of our 4 senators associating with some high muckety-mucks up there in Taiwan. So if you can't take junkets like this and have your picture taken with important people, why would anybody want to be a senator? If all you had to, if the only thing you could do would be to stay on Guam and work on solving the problems that we have here, you know, like the Post editorial said today, what were you guys doing as far as our hospital was concerned up there in your prepaid junket to Taiwan? Okay, so next we go to Lou Leon Guerrero versus Michael San Nicolas, and we talked about this yesterday. The Lou Leon Guerrero administration is waiting in vain for the release of the names of Guam's World War II survivors who have been awarded reparations, according to Delegate Michael San Nicolas. Adelup will not get any list of names, San Nicolas told the Post. It's confidential. Of course, we know why it's confidential, don't we, Real Joe Cruz?
It's a personnel matter, sir.
That's all you got to do, just mumble it's a personnel matter. Waiting for the list of names, he said, underscores that they have not vetted their proposal, which is kind of a polite way of saying they haven't thought this through. They haven't figured out how they're going to do this. They just think, well, you know, if we said this, we will pay that money out of local funds and then figure out some way to recoup it from the actual war claims reparations. That'll make people feel good, and they'll think they'll have really kind thoughts about us because the Leon Guerrero administration is trying to get people paid because they're old and they need the money. Yeah. And, of course, the way the left operates, the really important thing is to try. You know, you can try the same old remedies and solutions over and over again. The fact that they never work, I give you the Great Society. The fact that these things never work doesn't detract from their desirability as far as the left is concerned. All they have to be able to do is say, we tried. So if San Nicolas is right, and I have no doubt that he is right, they aren't going to be able to get the list of names. They're going to run the risk of paying some people twice. Probably not going to be able to pay anybody anything, and in a worst case scenario, muck up the efforts that San Nicolas is trying to do to get the right legislation through Congress. All he needs to have happen is to have some congressman who for some reason doesn't want that money to be paid say, why should we pass this appropriation bill allowing that money to be paid when the government of Guam is paying it itself? It's called cover. If you don't want San Nicolas's bill to pass, there's your cover, members of the House of Representatives. So they haven't really planned it out, but they're going to be in a position where they take credit. Well, at least they tried. And if their trial doesn't work, then the next part of the exercise is to find somebody to blame it on. Blame it on the federal government. You know, just one more thing that the federal government is doing to us. They're not paying our war claims. They're making us wait too long. All this is really transparent from from where I'm looking at it. Janela Carrera, the governor's communications director, said Monday the administration is waiting for those names to be released before finalizing a plan to use local funds to pay out war reparations to the survivors before the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Guam on July 21. What a great photo opportunity. I think we talked about that yesterday. You know, Lou Leon Guerrero parachuting in or perhaps rappelling down from a helicopter with a wicker basket full of checks And the Manamco, who have been waiting for these checks, ferried up to the reviewing stand in convertibles or perhaps stretched limousines and escorted to the presence of the governor and her wicker basket as she hands each one of them a check and exchanges pleasantries, accompanied by a roaring ovation from the crowd saying, "You go, girl." Yeah, it'll be a tremendous media opportunity. Janella says they're waiting for the list of names, and Michael St. Nicholas says you aren't going to get the names because it's confidential. Although the recipients of reparations awards can identify themselves, the decisions made by the Foreign Claims Settlement Commission are listed by case number only. Those decisions can be seen on the Commission's website, along with a description of the ordeal the unnamed survivors went through during the Japanese occupation. The website shows that the most recent decision was reached on April 22. To date, San Nicolas said, Manamco survivors are set to receive settlements. None of the people who were approved for reparations are descendants of the deceased wartime victims. Each survivor will receive a reparations award of $10,000, he said. The total amount awarded by the commission to date is $6.2 million, which has been drawn from Guam's Section 30 funds and set aside at the Treasury for payment to survivors. No checks have been issued, however, because former Delegate Madeline Berdallo did not include a provision to authorize the Treasury to release payments in the bill she originally introduced. San Nicolas has proposed a corrective measure, H.R. 1365, which would allow for the release of the checks. It has been scheduled for a markup hearing before the House Natural Resources Committee on June 19. The congressman has expressed concerns about the administration's plan, which was announced on Friday. Governor Leon Guerrero said she's working with Speaker Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes to craft legislation that would use the $5.6 million originally intended as Medicaid matching funds and appropriate that amount to the survivors. The money became available after President Trump signed a bill that lifted the need to provide local match to access remaining Medicaid funds. San Nicolas said he fears that any local war claims legislation would interfere with the ongoing federal process and could set the clock back for everyone. Well, I got to tell you, I weigh in on the side of Michael San Nicolas here, and I can't say that I'm disappointed because I've kind of had expectations all along that what we're looking at here is the attempt to grandstand. And perhaps grandstand at, kind of salute somebody, to salute the flag while you're wearing Michael San Nicolas's hat. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, Bob. Very educational, very interesting, and entertaining. Thank you for this afternoon show. You were talking about war reparation. I'm really hoping that if good gets better, that maybe the veterans, the VA office should receive some of these war reparations, so they can maintain the cemetery, because a lot of them are not going to be receiving checks. But I'm just hoping that maybe some of that money, if they get a double check, maybe one check should go to the veterans office so they can upkeep the maintenance, for the special occasions and all the necessities down there. And maybe one day we'll, as I have heard recently, that somebody was planning to hook up our own water meter down there instead of the Navy. They're saying that the Navy is overbilling, but then again, that's just hearsay and something that I we don't even know about, just between the Navy and the Gulf Guam or Guam Water Authority. Anyway, I'm just hoping that maybe some of that money some of it can be diverted down to the Veterans Cemetery and to upkeep the maintenance, and maybe we can help out some of the families. You know, there are veterans and their wives that are not buried together. So I found that out because they don't even on my parents. They don't even their names. My dad's on the stone, but my mother's not, and I wanted to get some help, but I've never gotten any. So maybe some of this money can help out. That's all I have to say. You have a good evening, Bob, and thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome, Francis. Always good to talk to you. Okay, so I guess we got a 7th inning stretch coming up here. So let's everybody take that 7th inning stretch, and we'll come back to DFS versus the airport and Lou Leon Guerrero versus babies.
If you're driving, chances are you'll need gas soon. And by the growl in your tummy, a trip to the grocery store too. But don't just buy gas and groceries without getting double miles. Instead, apply for the new United credit card from First Hawaiian Bank and start earning double miles towards your next trip. Gas, groceries, getaway. With the new United credit card, apply at FHB.com. First Hawaiian Bank, member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
What if some of the things you were told and have always believed about work aren't really true? I'm Jerry Robertson. At 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll be looking again at Marcus Buckingham's 9 lies about work.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
So, okay, that part of the program we call, are you ready for this? The stretch. So everybody out there in our international radio listening audience would know that I just communicated the stretch. Okay, so next we go to DFS versus the airport. The Supreme Court ruled on this matter this morning, so it hasn't hit the news yet. It'll be on TV tonight. It'll be in the papers tomorrow, but you heard it first right here on Tall Tales. And in this case, this deals with two subjects that are near and dear to the heart of all of our international radio listening audience: the Open Government Law and the Sunshine Law, public disclosure of documents, open meetings, etc. And in this particular case, we have the DFS suing the airport, going way back. The contract for the airport concession was awarded to Lotte Corporation. DFS had the contract ever since. DFS sued the airport, saying that it had misawarded. It made a mistake in awarding the contract to Lotte. And the the trial court ruled in favor of DFS, and there have been a plethora of lawsuits since then. And this litigation revolves around several executive sessions that the airport board had after one of those decisions. And if you listen to Tall Tales, you know that if a board wants to go into executive session dealing with pending litigation, it can. It can't discuss salaries in executive session, even if it has a BS argument like, well, we were doing the evaluations in executive session, and that's a personnel matter. That doesn't work. But a board can meet with its attorney in executive session to discuss litigation. But if that is the case and the lawyer has to furnish his certificate, there must be a court reporter in the executive session who does a verbatim transcript of whatever is said in that executive session. A transcript must be immediately transcribed, but it will remain confidential for 6 months. The 6 months, let's call that the gag rule, right? The 6-month gag rule can be extended if the proponent makes a motion with the court to extend it before the expiration of the 6 months. In this case, DFS had filed a sunshine law request for the transcripts of the executive session. The airport defended and said, no, you can't have those. The airport had filed a motion with the judge to extend the period after the period had expired. But the airport stuck by its guns and said, no, you can't have those because they have to remain under seal. Well, in this case, DFS versus the airport, the court said that once the 6 months expires, that's it. You cannot unpublic that which has become public. So even though the airport found a judge who would grant their motion, that would not stand as a reason not to release the transcripts. You recall Judge Sokola was rather short with the airport in court and told them and ordered the airport to come back to court right about now and show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt for not furnishing those transcripts to DFS. Here's how it came out. The Supreme Court said you can't, once the 6 months is over, it cannot be renewed. You have to renew it before it expires. But the Supreme Court also said that you have to read the open government law and the sunshine law together. And there's some language here that I will read and then explain. There is nothing inherently inconsistent with the provisions of 5 GCA 8111, etc., and 5 GCA 10108. The 8111 is the open government law. The 10108 is the Freedom of Information law. Each works harmoniously with the other to protect privileged communications of government agencies, while attempting to balance properly these protections with the public's right to know. Respondents' contention that they can obtain through the Freedom of Information Act material that is normally privileged would create an anomaly in that the FOIA could be used to supplement civil discovery. We have consistently rejected such a construction of the FOIA. This allows for the protection and disclosure of executive session transcripts to proceed at its own pace, tailored to the unique circumstances surrounding government-involved litigation, while preventing the open government law and the Sunshine Act from being used to shield government misconduct. And of course, that's what we're concerned with here on Tall Tales, using the exemptions in those two statutes to shield government misconduct. The Open Government Law and the Sunshine Act worked hand in hand to permit temporary withholding of attorney-client communications between a government agency and its counsel. We find that the trial court erred. The Sunshine Act permits GIAA to temporarily withhold executive session transcripts if they pertain to pending litigation until such time as that litigation concludes. So within the open government law, there is a list of matters that an agency doesn't have to disclose, and one is public records dealing with pending litigation. So duty-free shoppers made the argument that when it comes to documents from executive or documents, the open government law trumps the Sunshine Law. The Supreme Court said no, even though the airport can't keep those transcripts private because they missed the 6-month deadline, they can because the Sunshine Law allows an exemption for documents underlying litigation. So 33-page decision, and that was the holding. The airport won and duty-free lost. The Sunshine Law and the rule for the future is that the Sunshine Law and the open government law have to be read together. You know, when you're talking about Law and Order Notebook here, Real Joe Cruz, when you're talking about two different statutes that seem to address the same thing in a different matter, if the two statutes cannot be reconciled, if they definitely conflict, then there are rules to determine which of the two conflicting statutes trumps the other. And one of the easiest one to remember is that the latter in time prevails. One statute is enacted in year 1, the second in year 5. The second one prevails if there is an irreconcilable difference between the statutes. There are other rules too. However, the first rule is this, that if you can look at the two statutes and read them together in such a manner that you can harmonize them, a court must do that. So what the court did in this case, they said, yeah, there are special rules dealing with executive sessions and the transcripts and keeping the transcripts locked up for 6 months. And how that's done, but then in the open government law, there is an exception that says that public records dealing with litigation need not be disclosed during the pendency of the litigation. So even though the airport screwed up on renewing the gag rule, they still prevailed based on the open government law. So this is complicated, but when you see this on TV, you'll be able to understand it because you listen and watch Tall Tales. Okay, next item on the calendar here is Lou Leon Guerrero versus babies. And this is an article from the Post. The Leon Guerrero administration is making plans to find a doctor who can perform abortions and set up a clinic on Guam. In a recent interview with the Associated Press on abortion, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero said she has officials trying to recruit doctors. Now, interestingly enough, Lou Leon Guerrero made the international news before her search for abortion doctors ever made the news here on Guam. Remember, yesterday I read you some stories from off-island, from mainland newspapers about Guam's search for an abortion doctor. Well, it finally made the local press. And then we go on. Jane Flores, director of the Bureau of Women's Affairs at the governor's office, said she was tasked with that effort to ensure women on Guam have a choice. She also noted that the effort is part of a larger plan to promote responsible sex. This is the government's job. Okay, I've got Shepard online here. Afternoon, Shepard.
Hey, how you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great, Shep.
Good, good, good. You just mentioned something about the governor says we need an abortionist. I thought we needed a medical examiner. I think maybe she wants an abortionist, but she's riding the wrong horse here. And I'm admittedly a haole, But, you know, my Chamorro brothers and sisters, if they make this happen before they get a medical examiner, I'll go march with them, you know, because we know who's going to be aborted here is future generation of Chamorro. And I just don't think that's right at all.
I agree, Shepard. And once again, priorities, right? We've been without a medical examiner for a long time, and we don't seem to be any closer to getting one. And now we've appointed a member of the governor's cabinet to go out and search for an abortionist.
Yeah, I'd like to get an update on the medical examiner search, and I'm with you with the priorities. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay, Shepard, thanks for calling. Okay, so first question that popped into my mind, why is this national or international? It's actually international news before it makes the streets on Guam. Is that because we have a stealth search ongoing? Are we advertising in medical journals, or what are we doing that we don't want the folks back home to find out about? Okay, I got our Carl on the line here. Hello, our Carl.
Hey, Bob. Good afternoon.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a special interest in the abortion issue. After college, I worked for a while with the local child welfare services. I was a social worker, and I dealt with adoptive parents. And I saw firsthand the things that people have to go through and are willing to go through to adopt a child. And I can say, without any reservation, there are millions of couples and families around America that are willing to adopt and looking for children to adopt and add to their families. And what is very frustrating is that the government, for some odd reason, has chosen to, I'm not saying that abortion should be illegal, but I don't think it should be at the level where it's done without any thought and you know, made so easy. Whereas the adoption process is expensive up front. I have a niece, her and her husband are wanting to adopt to add to their 2 children they already have. But they said they looked into it, and the upfront costs and just all the process they had to go through was more than they were able to do at the time.
I've been told by a usually well-informed source, Carl, that there is a 5-year waiting list at the Department of Public Health and Social Services for adoptions. So, you know, we don't want to talk about that. And I don't think abortion should be legal. I think that what you're doing, you have to ask yourself, when is it okay to kill a human being, under what circumstances? And that your answer to that would help you answer the question about abortion. So I not only think it's okay, I don't think that it's the government's job, our government's job, to sponsor it, to make it seem like it's the norm by, you know, like I'm getting into in this story. And as you point out, there are reasonable alternatives to adoption. You can't adopt the victim of an abortion, right, Carl?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, a lot of people aren't aware that since the passing of Roe versus Wade in 1973, there have been over 61 million abortions of infants, unborn infants. 61 million. There were over 70 million people killed in World War II. So we are fast approaching equivalents to all the people that were killed in World War II.
You know, if I were to put on my economist, my Freakonomics hat, Carl, I could look at that number, 61 million. One of those babies, had they been allowed to survive, might have been the one that found the cure for cancer, or might have been the one that figured out a way to burn fossil fuels without releasing horrible carbon dioxide. You know, the resource that was destroyed for, in my mind, no good reason, impacts us all. Think of what those 61 million people could have done had they not been aborted.
Yeah, and a common argument is said that, well, you know, some of these children are they're going to be, you know, in foster homes. They're going to lead really, you know, they're going to go through a lot of hardship and difficulty. I grew up in I was an only child. My father was an alcoholic. My mother suffered from schizophrenia. We were extremely poor. So we were in deep poverty. But the one thing I had going for me is my father, with all of his problems and limitations and failings, he taught me work ethic. He taught me, you know, to say please, thank you, excuse me, all the basics of life. And, you know, so I think it's a flawed argument. But just having a difficult life does not mean that people are going to turn out badly. You know, they probably would have advised, Planned Parenthood probably would have advised my mom to abort me because of our living conditions.
I'm coming up against the home stretch here, Carl, so I'm going to thank you for calling in and sharing that information about adoption with us.
Yeah, okay, Bob. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to share a few thoughts. I appreciate it.
All right.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
Discover a new galaxy. GTA introduces the new Samsung Galaxy S10 in 3 different sizes. The Galaxy S10 comes with cool new features like Power Share that allows you the ability to share your battery power with other devices. Or you can capture a wider world with its new camera featuring an ultra-wide lens for when you need to take pictures of the whole family. And with GTA handset payment option, you can take home a Galaxy S10 for $0 down. GTA, we start with you.
So heading down the home stretch here, Jane Flores, the director of Bureau of Women's Affairs at the governor's office, said she was tasked with that effort to ensure women on Guam have a choice. We're exploring all options right now, said Flores, who noted that the Bureau of Women's Affairs has just begun working on the issue. The Bureau of Women's Affairs, I wonder how many people are in that bureau.
Must be quite a few.
Quite a few, yeah. Flores is trying to set up the meeting this week with the Department of Public Health and Social Services and some doctors to determine how one goes about searching for a doctor willing to perform abortions on an island that is predominantly Catholic. We'll get to the predominantly Catholic in a minute, but I'm reading here from the Post, and looking at the PDN story. This is what it says. The administration is looking into recruiting a doctor to provide abortions here, said Jane Flores. Flores said she will be having a closed-door meeting with the Department of Public Health and Social Services officials this week to address the issue. A closed-door meeting.
How come your eye always twitches when you say that, Bob?
A closed-door meeting to distress. They'll meet to, quote, talk about a plan to recruit a doctor. But I guess we can't be let in on this. It has to be a closed-door meeting, right? And maybe there are some special tricks of the trade that the general public shouldn't know about. But anytime I hear closed-door meeting, it gets my Freedom of Information Act gland pumping overtime. So I wonder how a sunshine request asking for all of the public documents underlying that closed-door meeting would work. I wonder what we'd find. Because, of course, when you hear a closed-door meeting, the next thing that pops into your mind is this, what are they trying to hide? Public health. What is the first word, or what is the third word in the name of the Department of Public Health and Social Services? Isn't it public? Yeah. So the director of the Bureau of Women's Affairs is going to have a closed-door meeting with the people. Of course, the story doesn't say people, it says the department, to discuss how you go about hiring an abortionist. But we can't watch. We can't come in. No reporters allowed. Yeah. We're exploring options right now, said Flores. William Freeman, the last of two doctors who for years performed abortions, retired in 2018, and no local doctors have replaced him. Local law allows doctors to refuse to provide abortion services. Obviously, we need to have someone who can do a procedure in cases where we have rape or incest or getting an 11 or 12-year-old pregnant when their bodies are clearly not ready to have a baby. Now, I wonder how Flores drew the conclusion that an 11 or 12-year-old body is not able to have a baby. You know, the way nature works, if a person can conceive, then it's reasonable to think that that person could carry to term. But to the left, none of this stuff makes any difference. First of all, you know, the agenda is never, the issue is never about the agenda. It's about the revolution. That's what the radicals of the 60s used to say. So until we've gotten over the hump here where abortion is not only available to everyone, but paid for by the territory, maybe from the money we saved in sending the 3 senators to Taiwan, we won't be where we need to be. In response to that news, the Archdiocese of Agana voiced concerns. The Archdiocese of Agana appeals to our governor, the Adelup team, and the Catholic faithful throughout our island to respect life from conception to natural death and to be courageous in defense of innocent babies, the Archdiocese said. Now, I don't know how the Archdiocese does this. You know, I have this mental image of a talking church. The fact is that human life begins at conception, and the Roman Catholic Church affirms and promotes this truth. There is no other moral or logical place to draw that kind of line. Next, we have a quote from Dr. Tom Shea, who is the premier OB-GYN doctor on the island. You know, from the crack of midnight throughout the year, you're gonna hear about Dr. Tom Shea and his practice of OB-GYN. He's probably brought in thousands of babies here. Tom Shea said he would like to see Adelup working to recruit doctors, other doctors, those who do procedures that will help us save lives. Pediatric surgeons, more interventional cardiologists, rheumatologists. The effort Adelup is making to establish an abortion clinic on Guam is set against a national background in which conservative lawmakers are making abortion illegal in their respective states. Well, there's a lot more on this, so I think I'm going to make this Lou Against Babies. This will be the lead item on tomorrow's calendar. Tomorrow's card. So if you want to talk about abortion, hear abortion, etc., Tall Tales tomorrow afternoon, right after we deal with Zemi Ikatni.